February 1959. 9 experienced hikers set up camp on a remote slope in the Soviet Urals. They were never seen alive again. What they left behind defies explanation. A slashed tent from the inside, footprints fleeing barefoot into minus 30 degrees Celsius snow, and bodies with injuries that look like 1 second silence and let it sit. Something crushed them from above. Welcome to Truth Beyond Maps. The expedition began on January 23, 1959. 10 students and graduates of the Ural Polytechnic Institute departed by train from Sverdlovsk, heading into the northern Urals on a route classified Category 3, the most dangerous designation possible. Their leader was 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, experienced, methodical, the kind of person who planned for everything. The group had done this before. Winter treks through remote Soviet wilderness. This was supposed to be their hardest challenge yet. A 300-kilometer crossing to Gora-Otorten Mountain. January 28th. One member, Yuri Yudin, develops severe joint pain near the settlement of Vijay. He turns back. He will later say it was the luckiest moment of his life. The other 9 continue north. February 1st. The group reaches the eastern slope of Koletshakal, a mountain whose name, in the local Mansai language, translates to Dead Mountain. They set up camp partway up the slope, rather than in the sheltered forest below. This decision, camping on an exposed incline in high winds, will become one of the first unanswerable questions of the case. Igor Dyatlov was an expert. He knew better. Why did they stop here? The temperature that night dropped to somewhere between minus 30 and minus 40 degrees Celsius. Winds were strong enough to create whiteout conditions. Inside the tent, the 9 hikers ate dinner, wrote in their diaries, and went to sleep. They were never seen alive again. The alarm was raised on February 12th when Dyatlov failed to send his scheduled telegram home. A search party was organized. On February 26th, 25 days after the group disappeared, searchers flying over the slope spotted something wrong. The tent was visible from the air. It was partially collapsed, and the area around it was completely still. When rescuers reached the tent on foot, what they found would confuse investigators for the next 6 decades. Let's start with what rescuers found, and what they didn't find. The tent had been cut open from the inside. Not torn, not ripped by wind, cut. Forensic analysis conducted by the Sverdlovsk Forensic Laboratory confirmed the cuts were deliberate, made from the interior, using a knife. Something inside that tent terrified 9 experienced mountaineers so badly that they chose to cut their way out rather than use the entrance, and then run, in their socks and underwear, into a minus 40 degrees Celsius night. Here is what makes it stranger. The footprints they left behind were not running. They were walking, calm even, deliberate steps. 9 people moving together, away from the tent, toward the tree line 1.5 kilometers below. Whatever frightened them enough to slash the tent and abandon all their gear, they then walked away from it, calmly. The first 2 bodies were found at the tree line. Yuri Krivonyshenko and Yuri Doroshenko, both in underwear. They had built a fire. The branches above the fire were broken at 4 to 5 meters, suggesting one or both of them had climbed the tree, possibly to look back at the tent. Krivonyshenko had 3rd-degree burns on his hands and feet. The burns were not consistent with falling asleep near a fire. You don't sustain 3rd-degree burns while unconscious because the pain response wakes you. He burned himself while awake, consciously. Why? 3 more bodies were found between the tree line and the tent. Dyatlov himself, Zina Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin, positioned as if they had been trying to return to the tent. Slobodin had a fractured skull, cause of death for all 3, hypothermia. The final 4 bodies weren't found until May 4th, 3 months later, buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine 75 meters from the tree line. These 4 had survived the longest. They had cut clothing from the bodies of their already dead companions and wrapped themselves in it, a rational, deliberate act of survival. They had dug into the ravine for shelter. And yet, Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotarev both had massive bilateral rib fractures, the kind of internal force that, according to the lead forensic investigator Boris Vozrojdeny, would require a car crash or an industrial press. There were no external wounds on the skin, no bruising on the surface. The force had been applied from outside their bodies without touching the skin, which is physically almost impossible under normal circumstances. Dubinina was also missing her tongue, her eyes, and her lips. And weakened teens in next episodes. That's the Dyatlov Pass. 9 people, no answers. 60 years later, we're still guessing. If you want more stories like this, hit that subscribe button and join the Truth Beyond Maps community. Drop your theory in the comments. I read every single one.